Today, we'd like to discuss with you the truth about mold. I get asked a lot of questions all the time through social media outlets, through my email, through text messages. And as an expert in mold and mold remediation, over 25 years experience, handling thousands of mold remediation projects, there's a few facts I'd like to share with you today that I think will be helpful as you start to learn more about it in your investigations. So the first thing I want to tell you, if you do have a mold problem, do not use bleach. Bleach is not an effective agent in mold remediation. The most important factor in mold remediation is not killing the mold, it's actually mold removal. And so if you think about that, spores themselves, well, let me share a story with you. Mold is made up of three parts. You have your mycelium, your hyphae, and the spores. And the spores are like little dandelion seeds. And they go airborne and they settle. And when they settle on an organic food source and there's moisture present, that mold spore can then grow and start to spread and turn into more mold spores. And it works just like dandelions in a yard. And so the key in mold remediation is removing those mold spores. And so bleach doesn't effectively do that. If I spray bleach on my clothes, what would happen? Well, my clothes would still be here, wouldn't they? But they lose their color. And so instead of just spraying bleach on clothes, the mold spores still could be there. They have a protective shell that certainly is very resilient against that. And so we use hydrogen peroxide-based solutions or even white vinegar to remove that surface. But mold remediation can be a lot more complex. And so we don't need to get into that right now. But the first thing I just want to tell you, bleach is not effective. The next thing, not all mold is harmful. Certainly some of you might like blue cheeses. We know that aspergillus and some penicillins, and those are used in pharmaceuticals and in other research. Mushrooms are in the fungi kingdom. But there are a few. There are red flag molds that we call them. Stachybotrys, Fusarium, Chaetomium. These types of molds I call them the red flag molds. Those are the ones when I see on an air quality report, we say, okay, there was some water damage present. Why are they here? And we have to really investigate further. And if we see those are the ones we also know that have the toxic effects associated with them. You see, mold spores inside have what's called a mycotoxin. A mycotoxin stands for poisonous gas. And not all mycotoxins are harmful to human beings. We breathe them in every day, which brings me to the next point, that mold has been around since the beginning of time. Mold is nature's garbage disposal. Up here in New England, every year we're reminded of this. We see the leaves drop from the trees, and it is mold that breaks those leaves down. And so we need mold to balance our ecosystem. What happens, though, everybody has varying allergies. And in my opinion, we spend more time indoors these days. We have a culture that's obsessed with hand sanitizers now. And so we have weakened immune systems. We're also building our houses out of softer building materials, paper goods, soft wood. And as a result, those are more susceptible for mold growth. And so when you combine all that, we start to see these different iterations of mold growth indoors. And with weakened immune systems, people are more sensitive to that. That said, the variables are so vast with mold that everybody responds differently to different types of molds. And that's what we realize. So on our end, we treat it all the same. But most importantly to remember, it is an important part of our system. You do not need a sterile environment indoors. So we look for mold contamination. If you have a small amount of mold, and we can talk about this, you can probably clean it up yourself. Brings me to my fourth point. If you can't clean it up yourself, remediation isn't always expensive. And I hear the calls, oh, I can't afford that. It's going to be tens of thousands of dollars. Well, the reason was there was some very well publicized court cases back in the day, 2002, down in Texas, Ed McMahon and the Ballard case and on and on and on. And we see the media sensationalize this and they want to sell these stories. And sometimes a mold remediation, it may cost a couple $1,000s. It may cost a few $100s. And sometimes they do cost tens of thousands of dollars. But remediation isn't always crazy expensive. So there's your 4 bits for today. The 4 facts about mold, I'll reiterate. Number 1 is do not use bleach. Number 2, not all mold is harmful. Some of it actually has some really great benefits. Number 3, mold has been around since the beginning of time. And number 4, remediation doesn't always have to break the bank. So I hope that's helpful for you. I'm going to probably keep talking about a few more stories if you want to stay with me. And I just said that like I was on a channel.